This demo illustrates RADIUS service provided by Fortinet FortiAuthenticator product. FortiAuthenticator is set up as an authentication server, which is already configured and running with default values. We will use its intuitive wizard-based authentication policy workflow to onboard an authentication client, also known as RADIUS client. In other words, before FortiAuthenticator accepts RADIUS authentication requests from a device, this device must be registered as an authentication client on the FortiAuthenticator, and it must be assigned a RADIUS policy. It really is a three-step approach. Step 1, create a RADIUS client on the FortiAuthenticator. Step 2, use the wizard-based workflow to build the RADIUS client and define the authentication policy. Step 3, save it, and you're done. Now let's start creating a RADIUS client on the FortiAuthenticator. First, just give it a name. And then enter the IP address of the RADIUS client. Enter the secret passphrase shared with this RADIUS client. Make note that in order to use accept account RADIUS messages for enforcement or support RADIUS disconnect messages, the client address must be set as an IP/hostname. Subnet and range client addresses type are not supported. Now you just complete step 1. Step 2 is to create RADIUS policy for this RADIUS client. Just follow the wizard workflow. Use the name field to create a RADIUS policy. Provide a description for this policy. Choose the client to which this policy applies. In our case, it is FGT-LAB. Now click next to define the RADIUS attribute in the RADIUS authentication request in order to process by this policy. A broad range of predefined vendors is available to use. Let's choose Fortinet. Similarly to the vendor drop-down menu, a broad range of predefined attributes is available. Use add another matching RADIUS attributes if you want to include another attribute. Click next to define the type of authentication for your use case. In this demo, we will use password OTP authentication type with PEAP. Now select the identity sources against which to authenticate end users. Since we use PEAP as an authentication type, the username format is shown. In our demo, we will use username at ROM format. Add a ROM to which the client will be associated. In our demo, we want to use Windows AD domain authentication, so we slide the switch to on position. You can also add another ROM if needed. Moving on to authentication factors. Note that authentication type settings are only displayed for password OTP and IP/TLS authentication types. Device authorization options allow AO2.1x authentication for non-interactive devices. For example, a network printer. Advanced options give you more flexibility to allow FortiToken mobile push notifications or reject username containing uppercase letters. Verify own configure authentication factor options allow one-factor authentications, and two-factor authentication is required if it is enabled on the user account. If mandatory two-factor authentication is used, two-factor authentication is required for every user. For RADIUS accept, the mostly used will be attributes to assign a VLAN, and this again mostly come from the user group attributes. Lastly, just click Save, Exit. Then you're done. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy our quick demo of FortiAuthenticator RADIUS service using the simple and intuitive wizard-based workflow.